Welcome, my friends. This is Avenil, and you are watching Bookso English. Today, I want you to imagine this. The world's most brilliant mind has just stopped thinking. It is April 18th, 1955. The hospital room is quiet. The man who unlocked the secrets of the universe has taken his last breath. His name, Albert Einstein. The nurses stand in silence. The doctors close their files. But one man in that room cannot stop staring at the body. His name is Dr. Thomas Harvey, and in his heart, there is a burning question. What made this man's brain so different from the rest of us? And in the next few hours, he will do something that will shock the world. Something Einstein never wanted. Something that will take this brain on a journey across America, hidden in jars, fought over by scientists, and studied for decades. Why? Because inside this 1.23 kilogram organ lay the map of a genius. A map that might explain how one man could see the universe in ways no one else could. Today, my friend, we are going deep. We are going to follow that brain, from the moment it was stolen to the moment science finally revealed its secrets. And along the way, we will discover lessons about curiosity, courage, and the power of the human mind. So put your phone down, open your mind, and let's begin. Lesson 1. The day the genius died. Albert Einstein was more than a scientist. He was a symbol. His wild hair, his kind eyes, his quiet smile, they hid a mind that could bend reality with a single thought. He gave us the theory of special relativity. He showed us that energy and mass are two faces of the same coin with the equation E=mc². He explained the photoelectric effect and opened the door to quantum physics. For this, he won the Nobel Prize. But more than his discoveries, people loved his way of thinking. He could take the most complicated problem in the universe and make it feel simple. He could imagine light traveling through space as if it were a friend walking beside him. He could see time itself stretching and bending. And then, on a quiet morning in Princeton Hospital, the light in that mind went out. He was 76 years old. He had told his family many times, "When I die, I want to be cremated. I don't want my body to be studied. I don't want my brain to be cut open like a laboratory experiment." But fate and curiosity had other plans. Lesson 2. The stolen brain. When the news of his death spread, the world cried. But inside that hospital, Dr. Thomas Harvey made a choice. He was the pathologist assigned to perform the autopsy. As he examined Einstein's body, one thought kept repeating in his mind. This brain is not ordinary. This brain has solved mysteries no one else could even see. I have to know why. And so, without permission, he removed Einstein's brain. He placed it in formaldehyde. He took photographs. And when the hospital found out, they were furious. Dr. Harvey was fired. His reputation was destroyed. But he did not return the brain. Instead, he went to Einstein's son, Hans Albert, and pleaded with him, "Let me study it. Let me share its secrets with the world." Reluctantly, Hans Albert agreed. On one condition: any research must help humanity understand the nature of intelligence. And so, the journey began. Lesson 3. The brain in jars. Dr. Harvey was not a brain scientist. He knew about autopsies, not neurons, but he believed he could learn. He took the brain to Philadelphia. He cut it into 240 small pieces. Each piece went into its own jar, suspended in a chemical solution. He labeled them carefully, like treasure. But treasure is heavy when it cannot be shared. Harvey kept the brain in his basement. His wife was horrified. She threatened to throw it out. They fought so often about it that their marriage collapsed. Harvey packed the jars and moved to Kansas. For years, he worked different jobs, carrying Einstein's brain with him wherever he went. Sometimes it was in his office, sometimes in his home, sometimes in a cardboard box. Decades passed. The brain aged, but no great discoveries came. His medical license was eventually taken away. He worked in a plastics factory. Still, the brain stayed with him, like a promise he could not keep, but also could not break. Lesson 4. The first clues. It wasn't until 1985, 30 years after the theft, that the first scientific paper about Einstein's brain was published. Harvey had finally sent pieces to top neurologists. What they found shocked them. Einstein's corpus callosum, the bundle of nerve fibers that connects the left and right halves of the brain, was unusually thick. This meant the two sides of his brain could communicate faster and more powerfully than in most people. Imagine you are typing on a keyboard. Your left hand hits the wrong key. Your right hand instantly presses backspace. That instant correction is thanks to the corpus callosum. In Einstein, that link was like a superhighway, allowing him to connect logic and creativity in a way few humans could. And there was more. The patterns of folds in his brain were unusual. This may have allowed a faster flow of neurons, which are the brain's messengers. Faster messages meant he could solve complex problems in his head without writing them down. Even more surprising, his brain was actually lighter than average. A normal brain weighs around 1,400 grams. Einstein's was only 1,230 grams. But researchers found that the outer layer, the cortex, was thinner. This meant more neurons could be packed into the same space. More neurons meant more connections. More connections meant more possibilities. Lesson 5. Born. This way or built this way? But here was the real question. Was Einstein born with this brain, or did he build it through years of deep thinking? The answer may surprise you. When Einstein was a child, he did not speak until the age of 5. He was quiet, withdrawn, lost in his own thoughts. He struggled to memorize simple multiplication tables. Teachers thought he was slow, but when he was 12, something changed. A tutor left a geometry book in his home. Einstein read it in one day. By 14, he had mastered calculus. His gift was not memorization. It was understanding. He saw math not as numbers on a page, but as living shapes and patterns in his mind. Every question he could not answer made him think harder. Every problem he could not solve made him imagine deeper. Over time, his brain adapted. It grew stronger. It built more connections. Scientists now believe his brain was shaped both by biology and by his relentless curiosity. Yes, he may have been born with unusual wiring, but it was his way of thinking, his hunger to understand the universe, that truly made it extraordinary. Lesson 6. The Long Road of Research. After the first studies in 1985, scientists became hungry for more answers. Pieces of Einstein's brain were sent to top researchers across the world. Some studied the shape, some studied the thickness of the layers, some measured the density of neurons, and each time, new details came to light. One of the most fascinating findings was in his parietal lobes. These are the areas at the top of your brain, just behind your forehead. They help you understand space, shapes, and movement. They also help you think about numbers. In Einstein's brain, the parietal lobes were 15% wider than average. This could explain his extraordinary ability to visualize complex problems, like imagining himself riding a beam of light through the universe. Researchers also found that certain grooves in his brain were missing. At first, this sounded like a flaw, but it wasn't. The missing grooves actually gave him larger, continuous areas of brain tissue. That meant more space for neurons to connect and work together, like a huge, open meeting room where ideas could flow without walls in the way. Every piece of his brain told the same story. This was not just a brain that knew facts. This was a brain that could see ideas, feel patterns, and connect different worlds of thought: science, art, music, and imagination, all at once. Lesson 7. Creativity meets logic. Most people think of Einstein as a man of pure logic. But the truth is, his creativity was just as important as his equations. He played the violin passionately. He loved music, not just as a hobby, but as a way to think. When he was stuck on a problem, he would play Mozart or Bach. The rhythm, the flow, the beauty of the notes, they would help his mind relax and wander. Then, suddenly, the solution would appear. Science now knows why this worked for him. His thick corpus callosum allowed his logical left brain and creative right brain to share information faster. It was like having two supercomputers connected with a lightning-speed cable. While one side worked on the math, the other side imagined pictures and stories about light, time, and space. Together, they solved problems that no single side could have done alone. This is a lesson for all of us. Genius is not just about being smart in one way. It's about connecting different ways of thinking. It's about letting your creativity and your logic dance together. Lesson 8. The Struggles of a Genius. It's easy to imagine Einstein as someone who was always confident, always brilliant, always admired. But the truth is, he struggled too. As a child, teachers doubted him. His slow speech worried his parents. He failed entrance exams for university. He worked in a patent office because he couldn't get an academic job at first. But here's the difference. He never let failure define him. Every obstacle became a challenge to think differently. When he couldn't memorize things the normal way, he found his own way to understand them. When people told him something was impossible, he asked, "Why?" And often, that why opened doors others didn't even see. Many scientists now believe that his unusual brain structure was partly shaped by these struggles. Just like a muscle grows stronger when you work it hard, his brain may have developed new connections because he had to think differently from the start. Lesson 9. The Controversy. While scientists were fascinated by Einstein's brain, not everyone was happy about how it had been taken. Remember, Einstein never wanted his body studied. He wanted to be cremated and scattered in peace. Some people see Dr. Harvey's actions as a betrayal. Others see them as an act of devotion to science. Even Harvey himself seemed to live in the shadow of his decision. He carried that brain for decades, moving it from place to place, perhaps wondering if he had done the right thing. It wasn't until the 1990s that he finally returned most of the brain to Princeton Hospital. By then, some pieces were in museums and some in the hands of researchers. But the story still divides people. Was it curiosity, or was it theft? Did it honor Einstein's genius, or did it ignore his wishes? We may never have a simple answer, but we do know this. The research changed the way we think about intelligence forever. Lesson 10. What the brain taught us. Before Einstein's brain was studied, many people thought intelligence was mostly about size. A bigger brain meant a smarter person, but Einstein's brain was smaller than average. And yet, his ideas were bigger than almost anyone's. The real difference was in the wiring, the density of neurons, the strength of connections, the ability for different areas to work together. This showed scientists that genius is not about having more brain. It's about using your brain better. It also reminded us that the brain can change. Einstein may have been born with some special features, but much of his power came from how he used it. Years of deep thinking, creative problem-solving, and relentless curiosity shaped his brain in unique ways. Lesson 11. The final resting place. Today, most of Einstein's brain is kept at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. Tiny slices are preserved on microscope slides, each one a window into the mind of a man who changed the world. Visitors look at them and wonder, could I think like that? Could anyone? The answer is both yes and no. No one can be exactly Einstein. His life, his time, his experiences, they were unique. But yes, we can all learn from how he thought. We can all train our brains to connect ideas, to stay curious, to mix logic with creativity. Einstein once said, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." Maybe that's the real secret. Lesson 12. Your brain, your potential. My friend, the story of Einstein's brain is not just a story about science. It's a story about possibility. It's a reminder that your brain is not fixed. You can grow it. You can rewire it. You can teach it to see the world in ways it has never seen before. You may not discover the theory of relativity, but you can discover your own talents. You can connect your own creativity and logic. You can keep asking why when others stop. Einstein's brain was different, yes, but so is yours. And maybe, just maybe, the real lesson is this. Don't wait for someone to study your brain after you're gone. Use it now while you have it to create something that will live on. Lesson 13. The neuron secrets. When scientists looked closely at Einstein's brain slices under the microscope, they began to notice details that textbooks had never shown them before. They found a higher density of glial cells in certain areas. Glial cells are like the support team for neurons. They feed them, protect them, and help them communicate better. The more active a brain area is, the more glial cells it tends to have. In Einstein's brain, The regions connected to mathematics, spatial reasoning, and visual thinking had unusually high glial counts. This suggested that those areas had been working extremely hard during his life, constantly processing information at a high level. It was like looking at a road map where certain highways were wider, smoother, and better maintained than others. Highways that led directly to his genius. Another detail amazed researchers. The prefrontal cortex in his brain, which is linked to decision-making and abstract thinking, showed unique patterns. This could explain why Einstein could imagine theories about time, space, and energy that others couldn't even picture in their minds. Lesson 14. The art of visual thinking. One of Einstein's greatest strengths was his ability to think in pictures. He didn't just solve equations, he saw them. He would imagine himself chasing a beam of light through the cosmos. He would picture clocks moving faster or slower depending on how they traveled. He used these thought experiments to test his ideas before writing a single formula. Modern science now connects this to his unusually large parietal lobes and strong brain connectivity. His mind could move effortlessly between imagination and calculation, making the two work together instead of apart. This is an important lesson for us. Many people think being smart means only thinking in words or numbers. But the brain has many languages: images, sounds, patterns, feelings. The more you can combine them, the more powerful your thinking becomes. Lesson 15. Encounters with the brain. Over the decades, Einstein's brain traveled quietly across the United States. Sometimes it sat in a box in Dr. Harvey's home. Sometimes it was in his car as he drove long distances to meet researchers. In the 1990s, a reporter named Michael Paterniti even took a road trip with Harvey, and with the brain, sealed in 2 mason jars, sitting in a Tupperware container in the trunk of the car. People who saw the brain up close often described the same feeling, a mix of awe and discomfort. Awe, because they were looking at the very organ that had reshaped humanity's understanding of the universe. Discomfort, because it felt almost too personal, like holding a piece of someone's soul. Lesson 16. Modern science steps in. By the early 2000s, technology had advanced enough to study the brain in far greater detail. High-resolution imaging allowed scientists to analyze the structure more precisely. They confirmed earlier findings: the thick corpus callosum, the unique folding patterns, the enlarged parietal lobes. But they also found subtle asymmetries, slight differences between the left and right hemispheres that may have contributed to his ability to process information in unusual ways. One finding that stood out was the extraordinary complexity of the folds in the frontal cortex. These folds increase the surface area of the brain, allowing more neurons to fit in. More neurons mean more connections. And more connections mean a greater capacity for integrating information from different parts of the brain. Lesson 17. The debate over nature and nurture. Even with all these discoveries, one question refused to die. Was Einstein's genius the result of being born with a special brain, or did his experiences shape it? The truth seems to be somewhere in between. Some of his unique brain features may have been present from birth, but research into brain plasticity, the brain's ability to change and grow, shows that our experiences can physically reshape our brains. Einstein's lifelong habits of deep concentration, problem-solving, and creative thinking could have strengthened and expanded certain brain areas. In other words, Einstein may have started with an advantage, but it was his curiosity, persistence, and willingness to think differently that transformed him into the Einstein we know. Lesson 18. Lessons for our own brains. My friend, you may never ride a beam of light in your imagination the way Einstein did, but you can train your brain to work at its best. Here are a few lessons we can take from the story of his mind. 1. Stay curious. Ask why and how about everything, even the simplest things. Curiosity is exercise for the brain. 2. Think visually. Don't just memorize words, imagine them. Turn problems into pictures in your mind. 3. Mix creativity with logic. Play music, write stories, and solve puzzles. Let different parts of your brain talk to each other. 4. Challenge yourself. The brain grows when it faces difficulty. Don't avoid problems. Use them to get stronger. 5. Never stop learning. Even in his later years, Einstein was reading, thinking, and asking new questions. Lesson 19. The final return. By the time Dr. Harvey was in his 80s, the weight of carrying Einstein's brain, physically and emotionally, had taken its toll. In 1998, he finally returned most of the remaining brain tissue to Princeton Hospital, where it had first been taken over 40 years earlier. Today, visitors to the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia can see tiny, paper-thin slices of Einstein's brain preserved on glass slides. They look fragile, almost ordinary, yet they once held the thoughts that changed our world. Lesson 20. Beyond the brain. Einstein's story teaches us that genius is not only in the biology of the brain, but in the way we choose to use it. His brain was extraordinary, yes, but so was his attitude toward life. He embraced mistakes. He valued imagination as much as knowledge. He believed that curiosity was more important than formal education. That is a legacy no microscope can measure. It is something we can all inherit, no matter what our brains look like inside. Lesson 21. The child who thought differently. When people imagine Einstein as a child, they often picture a little boy who was already a genius. But the truth was quite different. Young Albert did not speak until he was nearly 5 years old. His parents worried something was wrong with him. When he finally began talking, he would pause before speaking, silently shaping the words in his mind before letting them out. Teachers found him strange. He didn't memorize things easily. Multiplication tables felt like heavy stones in his mind. But when it came to understanding why something worked, he became unstoppable. He would stare at a compass for hours, amazed that the needle moved because of an invisible force. That invisible force, magnetism, planted the first seed of curiosity that would one day grow into theories about the universe itself. His brain was not racing ahead in every way, but it was learning to go deeper, not just faster. Lesson 22. The Young Mathematician. At age 12, something extraordinary happened. A family friend, who was also a tutor, left a geometry book at the Einstein home. Albert opened it, and the world changed. The shapes, the angles, the perfect certainty of the logic pulled him in. He devoured the book in one day. The next day, he could already solve problems far beyond his grade level. This was the first time his brain met something it truly loved. Pure, beautiful logic. He realized that math was not about memorizing numbers, but about seeing patterns that could never be broken. And when he saw those patterns, they stayed with him forever. By age 14, he had mastered calculus. By 15, he was tackling problems most adults avoided. Teachers didn't always know how to handle him. Some admired him. Others were frustrated because his questions went beyond the limits of the lesson. Lesson 23. The Patent Office Years. After university, Einstein couldn't find a teaching job. He ended up working at the Swiss Patent Office, reviewing applications for inventions. At first, it seemed like a failure, but in reality, it was one of the best things that ever happened to him. The job gave him time to think. He would sit at his desk, reading descriptions of machines, imagining how they worked. This constant mental exercise trained his brain to visualize movement and energy in a way few people could. During those years, he developed some of his most revolutionary ideas, including the theory of special relativity. He did it not in a grand laboratory, but in a quiet office, surrounded by stacks of paper and ticking clocks. Lesson 24. Thought experiments and the brain. Einstein's famous thought experiments were not just clever games. They were deep mental simulations. He would imagine himself riding alongside a beam of light, watching how it behaved. He would picture trains moving near the speed of light, with passengers experiencing time differently. This mental skill came from years of training his imagination, a skill connected to his unusually large parietal lobes and high neuron connectivity. His brain could hold complex moving images in place long enough to test ideas without ever touching a piece of lab equipment. It's a reminder that the mind can be a laboratory. You don't always need expensive tools to discover truth. Sometimes you need only a clear vision and the patience to explore it. Lesson 25. The music connection. Einstein once said, "If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician." Music was not a side hobby for him. It was a thinking tool. When he faced a problem he couldn't solve, he would play his violin. The melodies helped his brain relax and reset. Then, without forcing it, the solution would often appear in his mind. Scientists now understand why. Playing music activates multiple brain regions at once, including those for motor skills, pattern recognition, and emotion. For Einstein, it was another way to strengthen the bridge between his creative right brain and logical left brain. Lesson 26. People who knew him. Friends often described Einstein as gentle, humble, and playful. He laughed easily. He didn't care much for formalities. When reporters came to interview him, he sometimes greeted them wearing slippers. But when the conversation turned to science, his eyes lit up. He could talk for hours, explaining with simple words ideas that were almost impossible to grasp. His brain seemed to work like a translator, turning the invisible language of the universe into stories that anyone could understand. Colleagues noticed something else. He wasn't afraid to be wrong. In fact, he welcomed it. Every mistake was an opportunity to learn. Lesson 27. The brain's legacy in science. The study of Einstein's brain did more than satisfy curiosity. It changed neuroscience. Before, scientists believed intelligence was mostly about IQ scores or brain size. After Einstein, they began to see intelligence as a complex network of connections, patterns, and interactions. His brain became a case study in how structure and function combine. It showed that creativity, logic, and imagination are not separate talents, but deeply connected processes. Today, brain researchers use these insights to study everything from child development to artificial intelligence. Einstein's brain may be silent now, but it still shapes how we understand human potential. Lesson 28. The unanswered questions. Even after decades of research, mysteries remain. Why did Einstein have those unusual folds in certain areas? Were they the cause of his genius or the result of it? Could another person with the same brain structure achieve similar breakthroughs? Or was his personality and life experience just as important? Some scientists believe we may never fully know. The brain is too complex, and genius is too rare to be reduced to a single formula. Others think that studying more exceptional brains might one day reveal patterns we cannot yet see. But perhaps the biggest lesson is that genius is not a single thing. It is a combination of curiosity, persistence, creativity, and the courage to think differently. Lesson 29. The mindset we can learn. You may not have Einstein's brain structure, but you can have his mindset. You can train yourself to ask better questions, to see problems from new angles, to keep going when answers are not easy. Einstein didn't waste time worrying about looking smart. He focused on understanding. He wasn't afraid to be the only one in the room who didn't accept the standard answer. He followed ideas that excited him, even if they sounded strange at first. That is something you can do today. You don't need jars of preserved brain tissue to carry his legacy. You can carry it in the way you live and learn. Lesson 30. The long journey of the brain. After Einstein's death in 1955, his brain began a strange journey across decades and cities. From Princeton Hospital to Dr. Harvey's basement, from jars in a cardboard box to the trunk of a car, from one laboratory to another. It was photographed, sliced into hundreds of thin sections, and studied by experts who hoped to unlock the secret of genius. Some saw this journey as a story of curiosity. Others saw it as a story of obsession. But either way, the brain traveled farther in death than it ever had in life. It became a symbol, not just of Einstein, but of our human desire to understand the extraordinary. It's almost poetic. The man who had spent his life chasing the mysteries of the universe became, after his death, a mystery for others to chase. Lesson 31. The human side of the legend. Sometimes we forget that Einstein was more than just a great mind. He was a human being. He loved sailing, even though he wasn't particularly good at it. He enjoyed simple meals. He often forgot to wear socks. He could be stubborn, but he was also compassionate, speaking out against war and prejudice when it would have been easier to stay silent. And like all of us, he had doubts. He once said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." Imagine that. The man the world calls a genius didn't see himself as one. He saw himself as someone who never stopped asking questions. Maybe that's the real secret. Not the thickness of his corpus callosum, not the size of his parietal lobes, but his endless hunger to understand. Lesson 32. The brain in the museum. Today, tiny pieces of Einstein's brain rest in the Mütter Museum in Philadelphia. They are preserved between glass slides, each one barely thicker than a sheet of paper. Visitors stand before them in silence, staring at something that once held the theory of relativity, the Nobel Prize-winning photoelectric effect, and a lifetime of ideas that reshaped our understanding of reality. For some, it feels like looking at history itself. For others, it's unsettling. A reminder that even the most brilliant minds are still made of fragile human flesh. The slides don't glow or sparkle. They don't look magical. They look ordinary. And maybe that is the most humbling lesson of all. Genius can live inside something that looks so simple on the outside. Lesson 33. What we really learned. Scientists learned a lot from Einstein's brain. About neuron density, about brain folds, about how different regions connect. But perhaps the biggest lesson came not from the microscope, but from the man himself. Einstein showed us that intelligence is not about knowing all the answers. It's about never being afraid to look for them. His brain may have been special, but without his curiosity, persistence, and imagination, it would have been just another brain. This is where the story turns back to you. You may not have wider parietal lobes or an unusually thick corpus callosum, but you have something just as powerful. The ability to ask, to imagine, to connect ideas in ways that no one else can. Lesson 34. Your brain's untapped potential. My friend, the brain you are carrying right now is the most advanced machine in the known universe. It can rewire itself. It can store a lifetime of memories. It can dream of things that don't yet exist. And yet, most people never come close to using its full potential. They let habits, distractions, and fear keep them inside the same small circle of thought. They repeat the same patterns day after day until the years pass and the spark fades. Einstein's life and his brain remind us that we are not limited to the patterns we start with. We can grow new connections. We can train our minds to think in pictures, in stories, in numbers, in music. We can feed it curiosity the way athletes feed their muscles with training. Lesson 35. The final message. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. You don't need to be Einstein to think like Einstein. You don't need to have a rare brain to live an extraordinary life. Ask better questions. Don't accept the first answer you hear. Look deeper. Connect ideas from different worlds. Imagine the impossible. Work on problems that excite you, even if they scare you. And when the world tells you something can't be done, remember that once, everyone believed time and space were fixed, until a man in a quiet office proved otherwise. One day, no one will remember the exact shape of your brain, but they will remember what you did with it. Closing words. The power is in you now. So, here we are. The story of Einstein's brain has traveled from hospital rooms to dusty basements, from microscopes to museum cases. It has been measured, photographed, and debated for decades. But its greatest value is not in the data it gave us. It's in the inspiration it leaves behind. Because the real difference between an ordinary mind and a legendary one is not just biology. It's the choice, every day, to use it fully. You have that choice right now. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for someone to tell you you're ready. You are ready the moment you decide to be. Einstein once said, The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. If you live by that, your brain, whatever its shape, whatever its size, can change your world too.